My name is Adam Roberts, and I'm a vocal coach here in the live music capital of the world, Austin, Texas. I'm on a journey to learn the stories behind extraordinary voices of people I know and what makes them unique. Each of my guests has chosen to follow their voice. So this is Colla Voce. Hello and welcome to the third episode of Colla Voce. Adam Roberts here, and I am talking across the miles today with one of my very good friends and former students, Nicole Davis. Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Adam. Thank you for having me.
I am always so excited, as you know, for anything that we get to talk about together or to collaborate on. So, Nicole, I met you when you were in your senior year of college as an undergrad at St. Edward's University here in Austin. And I actually think I may have potentially met you your junior year, but just very quickly as we passed backstage during a production of Violet that I was vocal coaching there. But I really came to know you as a senior when we started to work on musical theater voice. Could you tell me a little bit about your growing up and your passion for performance? Where did that come from?
Well, I'm Filipino, and I feel like it's just in the bloodline of most all Filipinos to just have a Whitney Houston song in the back of their mind. There's the national anthem, and then there is "I Will Always Love You" as the unofficial national anthem of the Philippines. If you go to the Philippines, you go there. "Endless Love" is still playing on the main radio station. It's
Really?
Yes, it's pretty fantastic. It comes on at least every 2 hours, and that's not even a joke.
Oh my gosh, I think I want to move. That's awesome. I love that.
I'll take you. I'll show you where to go. But being Filipino, and being around like a very lively culture for one, that I didn't realize until this pandemic and talking with my family over late Christmas talks at 2 a.m. where apparently like it's a culture that was suppressed for 20 years because of a dictatorship.
Uh-huh.
So when they finally got to be themselves and be expressive and free, they like took to that. So a lot of Filipinos sing. It's kind of like in the bloodline to just be singers, to be entertainers, to entertain each other. And so I always grew up going to these parties that I kind of really hated when I was very little. But everyone would like very popular in Japanese culture too, like karaoke, right? Everyone would be like singing karaoke all the time. And I grew up Catholic, and the mixture of like being told like sing at karaoke and like sing at school was always like, wow, this is my time to sing. And I just thought everyone could sing because everyone who's Filipino sang. My mom sang, and I just sang. And I remember first getting this little like vibrato in my voice and being like, I can sing, and feeling very special at like the age of 5 and doing it that way. But really performing, I think there was always a lively culture around me, and there was just like this internal mechanism that I can't describe that was happiest whenever I was just vocally free and when I was singing. There's family lore of that my grandma loves to tell me like to this day that when I was 3 months old, she was rocking me back and forth trying to get me to sleep. And my grandma actually was like second place nationally in some singing competition in the Philippines.
Whoa.
Way back in the day, my grandma's a beautiful singer, and she's rocking me back and forth to sleep. And I'm 3 months old, and she goes, "Huh? What is that?" And then she like calls, I think my mom over, like my dad over, or my grandpa over, somebody over. And then they're like, "Do you hear that?" And then she sings again, and then they hear the notes coming back to them, and they go, "Oh my God, is it her? Is it baby Nika?" Nika is my family name, and so then the family lore is at 3 months old, I was singing back to my grandma. um,
That's it factor, as we say.
that I was born no to do it. And so then mix all of that into this like person artist cocktail of myself. Around like 6, I did my first school talent show, and people just told me I had a great voice, and I'd I remember asking my teacher had me, like, sing it again, like, privately for our classroom, and they just, like, cheered me on, and they're also happy, and they literally always have me sing at church each and every time, and I just thought that was the thing that people did. I didn't think anything special of it other than, like, "Wow, I love singing, and they like it when I sing." And I remember someone, like, a mom came up to me and be like, "You should look at doing Broadway songs and things like that. I think you'd be great." And I go up to my mom, and I'm going, "Mom, somebody told me that I should, like, look into, like, Broadway? I don't know what that is." So my mom's an immigrant, nice working, hardworking immigrant woman, and my dad didn't go to college, and, like, they sent me to private school because they thought that's the right thing, and they think they're doing all the right things, and my mom answers back, "Ah, no, you do you know what do you do if you're an actor? You have to kiss a bunch of people." And I'm like, the whole thing was like, "You're gonna be kissing, like, a bunch of people,
That's
so
amazing.
don't be an actor." And I was
Wow.
okay. And so my dream was to become a pediatrician. Okay. But really, I was obsessed with the show House, and it was very much like I just wanted to make people happy. A
Uh-huh.
bunch of my passwords from the time when I was like 10 years old up until like 15 was make people happy.
Wow.
And that was literally like I think I wanted to play the role of a doctor just because I would somehow fix people's ailments and like make them just forget their pain, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. And I remember one time at church Friday mass, the priest gave us a big talk of like, don't hide your talents, don't you need to share them with the world. And I'm going, how is my singing going to affect anybody? Like, really, like,
Wow.
when when I'm singing karaoke at a party, like, whatever, I'm going to be responsible and be a doctor. Flash forward, I go to Incarnate Word High School, an all girls high school, where they have one of the best choir programs at that time. And I'm just really like wanting to sing. I don't know what I'm doing. My parents don't know what I should be doing. Before that, I actually took voice lessons for like 2 seconds so I could sing the national anthem for a sports banquet in San Antonio, like the CYO, the Catholic Youth Org sports banquet, and like the assistant coach for the San Antonio Spurs was there, and it was supposed to be like this big deal. And Adam, I botched it. Little 10-year-old Nicole like choked and just it was so bad. It was the worst thing ever. Like that was like my voice cracked. I was 10 years old. I got there because of a mom of one of my classmates goes, "Nicole is the best singer ever. She should do this." She had all this faith in me, and I just flopped so hard. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Well,
And then
we all have to have that moment, right?
right, yeah. And I think the second biggest flop was maybe the 5th grade. I was doing Stations of the Cross, and that one song that's like, "Oh, sometimes," my voice was cracking all over the place. It was like, "Oh," and it was bad. That was the biggest flop, and then that was like the second biggest flop. And so not that it killed my wanting to sing, but it definitely just made me go, I don't
It
know.
stayed with
And
you, clearly.
yeah, it did. Maybe it did. I had felt some deep shame at that time, and my family didn't see any reason for me to continue voice lessons other than having it for the one thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, you sing naturally, so you don't need the tutelage. Nothing. No, nah. So, anyways, in high school, we start singing a bunch of musicals, and I'm going, wow, this is fun. These are all fun songs. What is the story? And I mean, at that time, Adam is very well versed at having to teach people how to tell a story while they're singing. Because I'm sure, like, you have people that start with you and they're just wanting to sing, and they're not telling the story. Like, they're just singing to sing, which is not a bad thing. There are singers that do that every single day, but musical theater is different. You're telling the story because you're a character, XYZ things.
And then your voice is a conduit for that storytelling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at this point, our teacher at that time, she was kind of hard. She was like hard on us, and she was very keen on wanting us to sing a certain way, be a certain way. She's like, you need to tell a story with your eyes. Going, okay, what does that mean? She's like, look up all of these things and see where they're from. And then I got hooked. I was like hooked into musical theater, and I went to because I was still wanting to be a pediatrician, I go do a volunteer program at a hospital. And at that same summer, I was finally old enough to do this teen musical theater camp at this church I've always gone to since I was 5. And would sing too loudly in the front row, and the priest would be like, wow, she has a great voice. And that priest loved me because I had the loudest little voice for a 5-year-old. Going there since forever. And New Priest is putting on this program, and I get there and I'm all like high and mighty because I'm like, I'm not doing this forever. I'm gonna be a doctor. And then I fall in love with musical theater. It was like a classic rom-com where I'm playing hard to get and I finally give in.
Such a good analogy.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to fight it still. Like it's just now it's that kind of like the part of the rom-com where they're kind of having like a back and forth flirtation, and at that point I'm keeping it all to myself, not telling my parents why I'm wanting to sign up for dance classes or taking acting classes when I'm 17 and in my senior year. And I applied at DePaul University. Things get backtracked because my parents are divorced. I didn't get certain mail on time because for whatever reason they still did paper mail. I miss out on the one program I really wanted to do, which would have let me study music and do arts administration.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I end up applying for theater management, and I get in for that. But they tell me that I would never be able to even do a choir program because they're just so dead set on you just staying with the one concentration.
Wow.
And because I just discovered acting and musicals and everything so late, then I went to St. Edward's. I ended up being able to talk to the artistic director at that time, not knowing in my lack of experience what an artistic director was. So I went in guns a-blazing, just treating him like a normal person. And I end up getting a scholarship. And then I just continue my existence at St. Edward's, and I don't know as much theater as the rest of the people there. And I'm just so ready and so eager to learn everything and anything. And I help out in every which way, and I go, you know what these people don't know? They don't know film as much.
Huh.
And I think we're all the same level there. So what I'm going to do is my plan of attack is get all of my general education done, but also just get into film as much as I can, because I think that's going to be my way in. And now we're here, 2 awards later, 1 project coming up in June, possibly 2, have representation in LA, and yeah, I think like my artistic statement as a person is I just keep following like this internal, I guess, nature that just drives me to want to make people happy. And it's made me happy.
Back to the passwords.
Yeah, back to those passwords. I could go into a whole separate tangent of how hard that was being, Asian American and disappointing my parents and my family. And
well, so you bring that up, and my next question was going to be actually, the title of this podcast, Colla Voce, means follow the voice. And so in following your voice, I am curious as to, I was going to ask you how that went over, because one of the things that I've learned that I find really interesting is that in so many cultures where singing and creative expression are pretty ubiquitous when around the home or in the family or in social ways or in worship, things like that. So often it is sort of interestingly frowned upon that would become one's vocation, even though it is such a shared experience growing up and of the family life. So when did you decide conclusively not to go the pediatrician route, and how did that, is there a kind of weird crisis there between, but this is how we grew up, and so I know that singing is a value, but I'm not, quote, supposed to pursue it?
yeah, I love that word vocation, because that's the word I turn back to when I say, and I stand firm in why I'm pursuing what I'm pursuing, because it is a vocation. And for those of you who do not know what that word means, the more Christian elements of that is basically, they say it is how you best serve God, because that is the gift that you have to share.
Mm-hmm.
But in just the regular, even layman's, like the very secular terms of it, it really is just a calling. But that vocation, I do actually remember a specific moment. I don't know if other people have specific moments, but I was on stage and I was playing the part of farmer's wife.
How
Yeah, I didn't even have my own name. I was named by proxy. And I'm standing on stage with a bunch of really like sweaty, scared, smelly teens on this transformed stage in an outdoor church, which is beautiful. It's like a cove. But we're all just so nervous and sweaty. And this whole time, this director's been trying to tell us, like, come on, guys, you gotta smile. Stop looking so nervous. Like, have some fun. Like, you love this, right? And in that moment, it was like, if this was a movie, there'd be flashbacks between my choir teacher yelling at me to like be more expressive and tell a story, to this person being like, have fun, and going, I love this. And so then while I'm on stage, I just feel myself gradually open up in this way I've never opened up before. Because the rest of my personal history is I've always, I think there's a French saying of like someone sitting in between two chairs. I don't know how the rest of that saying goes. You know what would happen, like physics wise, if someone sits in between two chairs.
Yes.
How my life has been in terms of being in a multicultural divorced household, of feeling always so separated, of feeling like no place is actually my own. And to have that one thing that I carried with me all the time, which was my voice, become my own home. And getting to see that, and it's not to be overly spiritual, and I don't know why I'm like making all these like very godly references when I've literally struggled with my faith so much, but like to know that I've found home in myself in the house of God was so surreal, and it was transcendent.
God works in mysterious ways.
Truly, and I felt like if there was some camera focused on my pupils, they probably would have enlarged tenfold.
Yeah.
Like something just broke through. And from then it was just a matter of fighting my voice, fighting and not finding it, because I found it and I was like, how do I do this? And there was actually a class in high school. It was kind of like one of those like basket weaving classes you take just because you have to, and it's a religion class because we have to take one. And I took it because it was either I would have to take like Christian law or I would get to take something about a vocation. And we had to take these aptitude tests, or rather these less about skill set, more about desire. And they would kind of ask you these tricky questions of like, how do you feel about this and that and this? And mine came out tenfold of being like, you could be a singer, you could be an actor, you could be a writer, director, maybe like a therapist, who knows? But it was like all of these creative things. And I go up to my religion teacher carrying this booklet and being like, this is wrong. This is all wrong. This is no. And she goes, well, why do you think so? And I go, I can't make any money being a singer. She goes, how do you know? You haven't tried yet. And then from there, the gears were just turning. And that was my junior year. So senior year I started enrolling in dance lessons and acting lessons. And I remember my mom being like, this is not real, right? You don't want to be an actor. It's for fun, right? Yeah, Mom, absolutely. This is just for fun. Purposely inserted here because it was so blatant. I was just loving every second of it. But the fallout did happen where I told my mom that, I don't even think I told her. I think I just did it. And my dad was the only person that fully knew every single piece.
Sure.
And it was just like lying by omission at that point, which I know isn't the best. Because I was like, yeah, I'll go to St. Edward's for business admin, was the talk before I got the scholarship. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll go for business admin and I'll like minor in musical theater and I'll do that for fun. And I got the scholarship. And so I just was a theater major, and my mom didn't know what she was paying for it, but my dad knew. And my dad thought I was going to get a business admin minor, and then it ended up being a musical theater minor.
Well, business admin, musical theater.
Same thing.
Apples and apples.
Banapples. That's what I was trying to sell, was banapples, not even
banapples. There you go.
I remember finally breaking to my mom and being like, I told you this, right? And her being like, no, you did not tell me. But throughout all of this, there was just this big disappointment and I think apprehension of, we gave you this much and you're not gonna go out and be a nurse. like they didn't even want me to be a doctor. The safe thing was the nurse. Like, oh, don't you want if you want a family, then you should be a nurse. So even the dream of a doctor was like too big. So then this dream in itself was kind of like, at a time when I'm making everyone else happy, I found something that made me happy. And I remember just being kind of on eggshells, being a little bit estranged from my family. My grandma, my beloved, wonderful grandma, who's still cute, adorable, gummy bear-like, wrote me the most heartbreaking letter when I was a senior, because at that point, I think like even my mom was the only one that was kind of lost in the communication, but my aunt, uncle, my grandma also like had an idea of what I was trying to do. And my grandma writes me the letter that goes, please please, I implore you, pick a different career. And it was just kind of hard. I was already away from home, even if it's an hour and a half drive away, but I'm like on my own, quote unquote, still living off of their money. I don't know what on my own means at that point. I feel like I'm on my own. But I used that opportunity to just really dig in, find exactly what I said of learning every single little piece. And it took like I didn't really talk to my family for like a good year, I want to say. Like actually talk, like polite talk, make sure I'm alive talk, but really like heart to heart talk for a really long time. A really long time. And the conversation now goes, they thought I hated them.
Oh, wow.
They hated me. And what changed their mind was because I was working so hard apart from film, I was the managing director. I ended up, because DePaul, I was going for theater management, and I ended up being like the managing director of the theater troupe at St. Edward's campus. And I was producing shows left and right and producing good things,
Yeah.
impressing my professors, getting more scholarships and posting it online and showing my family, like, here's proof that I can make things happen. And they're going, I see how hard you're working. You're going to succeed at whatever you do just because that's you.
Oh, wow. So it came around.
Came around. So that's a long-winded way if you want to edit this later. But
No, Colla Voce.
it's it came around. And so then it became the flip side of that is also now they're going, oh, well, you're going to be there soon, right? And we're watching a Marvel movie and it's like some Marvel superhero. And I'm like, I'm going to try. There are these misunderstandings of like, oh, well, you can definitely do all of this from Austin, right? Going,
sure.
And having the talks with grandma, who I'm the only person she's raised from babyhood, 3 months old, singing back to her exactly what she's saying to me up until 21 years old. She's the only person she's seen from that age to adulthood. I mean, part of the Filipino experience is they have these things called OFWs. They're overseas Filipino workers.
Oh.
And it's a big part of the culture where there's family, and I'm sure it's a part of a lot of cultures where it's, it's a third world country, but it's all a part of the idea of making the lives better for your family, your own personal continuing immediate family, or your family back home. There's this whole thing of sending a balikbayan box. I'm sure I'm Americanizing the garbage out of that word right now. Balikbayan box. There, I got it. But what that is, it means like you're sending pasalubong, which is it means a box of gifts that you send back home. And that's like a whole culture. Like every Christmas, it's like there's Santa Claus with his elves. There's overseas family sending gifts back home to the Philippines for Christmas.
Wow.
You're like, well, what do you send them? It's like you send, like, it's a status symbol to be walking around with like Ritz crackers casually in your pantry in the Philippines. It's a status symbol to walk around with Levi jeans or Nike products. And they have those there, but they're like at a markup. And to put it back to my grandma, she worked in Saudi Arabia for like 9 years and was there 11 months out of 9 years, had 6 children, missed the childhood of everyone except for like 1 to 2 kids.
Oh my gosh.
So literally me having to tell her, Lola, I have to go to LA.
Yeah.
Because she's in San Antonio. That was a big deal. Because I mean, there's now this wonderful, I approve of this quote unquote stereotype of the Asian granddaughter and Asian grandma, but like it's true on that level. But like my grandma and I are to this level of my grandpa and her were kind of my parents, in the sense of my dad would travel a lot, not of any fault of his. He's done a lot for me. But the person that was there to witness my childhood every day, every single day as much as they could, were my grandparents. So, it's a different relationship. And I think like at this point where I'm at, that's the part that's been hardest because it's very communal. It's a very communal culture. And I talk to my grandma every morning, every evening. Sometimes I'll DoorDash her like a smoothie bowl. I love her so much. And those are the things where like, yeah, she was questioning why I was doing this, but it was never of my own ability. It was their own fear. They know what works, which is to be a nurse, which is what provided the American dollar from Saudi Arabia for a family of 6, which is how my mom has been able to create a living out here. Like that to them was like the secret to having a good life. And that's all they ever wanted for me. So I never look at that with spite like I used to. I used to look at it with so much spite of like, they don't want me here. It's hard. But I see it of like, no, they loved you that much. They wanted
Right.
to make that you could truly live the way that they had wanted you to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nicole came to my church virtually, St. Luke United Methodist Church here in Austin, where I'm the director of music, a few weeks ago as part of a Lenten series that I was leading called Changed for Good.
So good. That is such a good such a title. It tickles my heart.
Well, we were talking about musical theater lenses on different themes of Lent. And so Nicole graciously came and discussed her observations and thoughts of Miss Saigon and xenophobia with us. And the response to that, Nicole, I don't know if I ever told you, but people really were quite, I don't know what the right word is. What's the right verb? People were it really made people think. People really left that session with a lot of thoughts that I think they may not have had and some realizations that they may not have had. I know that's true for me. And I got a lot of really wonderful feedback about that. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'm happy that it touched people and it made them think. And I don't know why my automatic response is to apologize for making people think, but I hope it reached them at a time when their hearts were open to thinking. Because I think sometimes that's part of it, right? That's the key. It's the timing. Are you doing this for an agenda, or are you doing this because you're all ready to sit down and have an understanding?
Absolutely.
And I loved being a part of that and being invited to that, and seeing that there are people willing to listen. Because friends, before this wonderful podcast was being recorded, Adam was being a wonderful friend and listening to the everything that life has had to offer in LA. And I would say that more than half the time, it's always just refreshing to know that there are ears that listen and hearts that will reach out and tell you that your heart has gone through so much, and what it's gone through is something that not that they can fix, not that anything can be like truly done in the moment, but that someone cares is what I'm trying to say. So you might thank me for even saying that, but it was nice to just have people look me in the quote unquote eye, or at least virtual eye, and tell me to my face, like, I'm sorry and I want to help.
Yes. And because I think there is that feeling of helplessness on both sides sometimes. And maybe that can even be part of the venning. That's that center of that Venn diagram on occasion, I think. Because there is a shared desire to move things forward, but where one of the two parties has actually had the experience and the other party wants to be an ally, and both in different ways perhaps feel somewhat helpless. And that was part of the goal of that series, was to reflect on so much that's happened this past year. I mean, it's really quite remarkable that we got through as a world 2020 and 2021 to where we are right now, and all of the people who didn't get through to the other side. I think we owe it to every one of those people to understand each other more, to empathize more, to be better allies to everyone around us.
Yeah. Funnily enough, like in this crazy, crazy world, I've found myself protected not by the people who think the most like me, but those who are actually quite politically different. And that doesn't make me any kind of leftist sellout or moderate sellout or some kind of person that compromises their beliefs. It means that, not that I'm trying to put myself on some kind of pedestal or virtue signal, but like it's actively having very hard conversations. It's telling a friend why saying China virus isn't the best thing to say, and also owning the fact that I've gone through traumatic experiences that probably make me get triggered, emotionally triggered by that word. and owning that and doing the work by myself with a therapist to make sure that even if I do hear those words, I'm not going to hate the person that says them. Instead, I'm going to be empathetic and I'm going to go, do you know how that word affects me? It means that when I hear that word, I think of how my grandma can't walk outside. She can't walk outside without feeling like she's going to be attacked. And that actually just recently happened, Adam, as well, where my mind is afraid of things of my grandma who goes to the bus stop and walks to her senior center and exercises and wants to, socialize with other cute old ladies and learn how to play piano and all of these things. And she's at the beautiful age of 82 wanting to do all of these things. And COVID took that away. And now the blame of COVID is taking that away because she looks so blatantly Asian. But recently, because now my grandma is hearing all of this hate that's coming our way for no apparent reason, she saw some neighborhood kids in our front yard and thought that they were stealing from us. And went to go talk to them and thought that they were going to hurt her because they were just playing with like little stones and she thought that they were going to throw them at her. Now it's just an inherent fear. I talk to other Asians, their fears, their mothers fearing for their children walking out and being apprehended by somebody who's going to pin a whole world of devastation on them just because of what they look like. When last time I checked, and it's not just America that failed. There's Italy, there's Argentina, there's India, there's Brazil. There are all of these places that failed us during the pandemic that's not just politically aligned. It's we didn't know what we didn't know. But what they're trying to know is who to pin this on, and it's nobody. It's nobody but this weird cataclysmic place we are at in history that all of us are living through and all of us are a bit traumatized from.
Well, and there's society, right? As it's interesting to hear you say it that way, because when you think of the alchemy of what makes a pandemic, the physical virus, COVID-19, right? The biological entity, that is one aspect of a pandemic, I think, and certainly never having lived through a pandemic before, as I imagine most people who are alive now.
Oh, you haven't?
I haven't. This is shocking. When you think about pandemic, there is so much that is tantamount to cultural shift in pandemic and to cultural blindness and to not only the physical thing, but gosh, does it ever hold a magnifying glass to the demic, quote unquote, that is society? Mm-hmm. And wow, the fact that we feel as though there must be blame to be pointed for everything in the world is really quite surprising every time it happens, but it happens daily. So perhaps it shouldn't be so surprising, but then existentially, where does that leave you?
It leaves you with taking on your own accountability. Mm-hmm. It leaves you with this kind of either like nihilism, existentialism of, wow, maybe I just got turned into, or maybe I've just been entered into this very weird point of fate, of time, of history. That's really not the best. We think of the people living through the bubonic plague or who was on Pompeii or the Titanic. And we're going, oh, they definitely, like, that was tragic. Oh, well, what is it? Like, what could have been helped other than the knowledge we have now?
Yes. People using the term unprecedented. And of course, I'm sure I've used it. I'm sure I've used the term unprecedented. It's a total falsity. These are not unprecedented times.
Yeah.
They're very precedented times, in fact. They may be unprecedented in many ways in our lifetimes, but unprecedented, no. So that learning from history, someone was saying to me the other day that it's going to be really surreal when in 5 years from now, all of these films and documentaries, and I mean, maybe it'll be earlier than or sooner than 5 years, but all of these artifacts are going to come out about COVID. And certainly some of them will probably be historical fiction and some of them will be documentaries, and all just trying to wrap our heads around that moment in the arts and other ways is going to be really crazy.
Absolutely. Again, I go back to something like the Titanic, where we're all going, wow, didn't they know that iceberg would just take them down? Why didn't they have enough lifeboats? They didn't have an answer in the moment. They were just running for their lives.
That's right.
It's crazy to think that in this moment, so many people are getting inoculated and vaccinated and they're evading death. And that in itself is already a surreal thing to process.
That's right.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the whole hearing that wonderful, almost, what is it, like a drinking game worthy word of unprecedented, like the amount of times you've heard that either on the news or whatever. But you're right. Like, it's just, we've lived this 1,000 times as a people, but not as ourselves.
Absolutely.
The transmission of knowledge is always a hard thing, right? Like, that's why we read and we have scholars and we have people who make it their expertise and life's mission to study these things. And then for whatever reason, we just totally disregard them.
So I want to turn to talk about Miss Saigon with you. There was a revival of Miss Saigon that was on Broadway a few years ago, and I thought personally that it was brilliant. I know that you saw it as well, right?
The last thing I saw before COVID shut down, actually, it was
it really?
Yeah, it was at the Majestic in San Antonio, and I saw it with my aunt.
Wow, the last thing before COVID shut us down. Wow. Question I have for you. So I was in a doctoral seminar in grad school, and I had prior to that been unfamiliar with the term and then book Orientalism by Edward Said. And Edward Said's concept of Orientalism, boiled down, of course, much more complex than this, was the West experiences the East in the way that the West constructs the East. You know, exoticism, for example, would perhaps be an example of Orientalism, that we in the West have this way of constructing the East, and that we then proceed with our perceptions according to the way we have, as Westerners, constructed the East. And I'm interested to know, for you as an actress who does musical theater, shows like, and I don't want to, again, this has kind of been apples, right? I don't want to necessarily compare apples and oranges. They are apples and oranges in some ways, but shows like Miss Saigon or like The King and I. As a Filipino actress, how do you come to those shows? Are they acceptable? Are they positive? Are they, and again, those are two very different shows. I mean, I know my experiences with The King and I, for example, you know, of course it was, yes, we all know it was a different time when it was written, but I'm just interested to know what your generalized, that could be a whole dissertation, I know, but sort of generalized thoughts are on those musicals or others.
Well, I will have to say that I feel like whatever answer I'm going to give is already going to be a little bit tarnished than the answer I would have given when I was fresh coming into this, going like, what the heck? This is all I have? Because where I'm at now was different from where I was then, because right now I'm an actor going like, I would love all the opportunities. And I feel like that's the trap that we get put into as an exotic, quote unquote, exotic minority, right? Which is this theory of scarcity, of it just being scarce, that. There's a limited amount of it for us. Therefore, even the people that we're acting next to, we're looking at as competition. We're not actually brethren, sisters, whatever. We're all just trying to get the part. We're all just trying to make sure that we at least end up on Broadway in some way. So there's this part of me that I think has become a little bit jaded, where I'm going, sure, I'll do whatever the heck you want me to do, even if it's kind of not my jam to be, you know, force feeding the kind of picture exotic flower Chinese or Asian or whatever woman to you, because that's what you want me to be. It's kind of like, sure, I'll do it. I'll do the job. And I think that's not even Asian specific. I think that's a lot of minorities. I know like Latinx women who feel very objectified by the kind of persona they have to fulfill in media. And I think the same thing goes for Asian women. I'm not so familiar with, like, when it comes to the Black experience to that, other than the fact that they also feel tokenized. But a lot of my friends who I have these conversations with happen to be Latinx, and they agree on the same way of, like, we're seen as exactly what you said, of being exotic or other, and they'll put us right next to a white man. Why? I don't know, maybe colonialism, maybe that it's such a big part of, at least the country of the Philippines, colonialism is still such a weird thing that affects people. Those people are bleaching their skin as we speak. They're putting IVs in their skin to become whiter, because to them, being white is beautiful. Where I don't even know, like, that's a sad part. I don't even know if I'm beautiful here. People will tell me that, but I'm going, am I? Because for a while, you all were saying I had to be Reese Witherspoon, Legally Blonde Barbie, and I was hating myself for not being blonde and blue-eyed and quote-unquote normal American girl. I'm sorry, that's one big giant tangent, but jaded me goes, sure, I'll do the job. Fresher, unjaded me goes, you know, I would love it if, irregardless of what ethnic makeup that character has to be, that I could just play it. You know, like Shakespeare. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I could play that role. It doesn't matter that I am outwardly Asian. Because, you know, honestly, inwardly, I'm white. I can pull out a good Filipino accent for, you know, a good anecdote. I can't speak it fluently, but for whatever reason, people are just going to be like, oh, you can speak it fluently, right? No, no, I can't. I remember having this kind of very sad, depressive episode where I'm studying musical theater in college, and it's a full-on musical survey of musical theater class. And we're studying South Pacific, and I'm going, why is that character's voice not there? And oh, forgive me for not knowing her name right off the bat, but it's the one that's like, da, 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 talk about things you like to do.
I believe it's not Lunta, that's King and I'm not going to remember it.
But we
we were talking about the same person. Yes.
We're talking about the same person.
Not Bloody Mary.
Not Bloody Mary, her daughter. Bloody Mary's daughter.
That's exactly, yes, that's who we're thinking of, and we're both blanking. It's okay, we're forgiven.
But that's my point. We don't even remember her name because she wasn't given any agency. Some man just said younger than springtime and colonialized her. But that made me a bit sad, and I brought it up in class of, like, so is she really just reduced to this type of caricature? And I remember being told, like, well, this musical was groundbreaking because we were taught to be carefully taught because that song came out and that was groundbreaking. And yeah, I think when I look at something like the revival of Miss Saigon, it's the community taking ownership of their narrative and people going out of their way to make sure that it's an accurate, fully fleshed out interpretation of the truth, because that's what art is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the truth, unless you're blatantly going for escapism. And for something that it's a poignant musical, that's not escapism. There's no way that musical is escapism. And we talked about this when I was invited to talk to your Lenten group, which was like the set design for the revival. There was pieces of, like, how I would say that Ritz crackers are a luxury or a status symbol to have casually in your pantry in the Philippines. There were, like, American boxes of snacks just kind of interwoven into the set pieces.
Wow.
Into the shanties that were there. And because I had just came back from the Philippines December of 2019 and came back in the beginning of 2021, it hit even harder. It hit me and my aunt in a very, very hard place in our hearts where we're going, that's exactly what we've experienced, or that's exactly what we see when we go back home.
And, you know, I have to say that as someone who has never been to the Philippines, now I'll give myself a little bit of grace because I have a vision impairment, but seeing that same production, I didn't even notice them. I didn't notice those American, you know, snack boxes.
Yeah, the snack cans. Like, it's like, because initially it's like, if I hadn't just gone to the Philippines, I would have been like, oh, it's like when homeless people have, like, the random things. But these are uncommon objects. These are like sacred objects almost. And anyone can come back and try to correct me on whatever I'm saying, I'm sure, try to fact check me, whatever you want. But I just know from seeing it that that's really how myself and my aunt felt after seeing that production. And when you compare it to these caricatures that Asians are told that they have to play. Because of that scarcity, we'll go, okay, we'll do it. Are we going to be artistically fulfilled? No. Can we pretend like we are? We'll try to find the joy because we're actors. It's our calling. We'll do the job.
Yeah. That's the job and not the vocation part.
Yes, exactly. That's me crunching numbers at work, not fulfilling my calling to share my experience. Because I think now the vocation has really changed from to make people happy to making myself happy to showing people what's beautiful.
Yes.
Making people feel beautiful. It was so rare that I actually felt beautiful growing up.
Well, it's cliche, but I think you're gorgeous inside and out and always have.
Oh, that was me meowing like a cat. Because what? Thank you, Adam.
Well, you mentioned blatant escapism. And I want to conclude our time today with some blatant escapism because I have a little game that I love to play on this show, this podcast. I guess it's not a show like the old days. And this game is called Voice Memos.
Tell me what you know. Tuning into Voice Memos.
Okay, so I am going to ask you 10 questions, Nicole. It's just for fun, get to know you a little better, about your favorite blank.
Okay.
Maybe this is just your favorite blank today. You know, you're not etching anything in stone, but I'm very excited to hear. Who's your favorite performer?
Oh, Michael Jackson. I know that that's problematic, but can't explain why.
Favorite album?
Favorite album is The Lonely Hour by Sam Smith.
Wow, you're fast at these. Not surprised. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie, The Godfather, but it's changed to Shoplifters, which is a Japanese foreign film, really beautiful. So maybe like a good tie.
A tie there. Okay, well, how about favorite movie soundtrack?
Favorite movie soundtrack would be My Fair Lady.
Yeah, My Fair Lady. I love it. Bringing it back. Favorite musical group?
The Runaways.
The Runaways.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm learning some stuff here. Favorite song about a passion of yours? This is a hard one.
Oh, what is it? One of the rap battles. I think it's the second cabinet battle from Hamilton. I know that's super cliche, but like I'm used to being very opinionated, argumentative, and I had that like all in a bag where I was just snapping my fingers, just laying out that rap 24/7.
I love it.
Help me pass AP US history.
Oh, well, there you go. Lin-Manuel will be very happy about that, I'm sure. Favorite musical genre?
Favorite musical genre? I'm a sucker for classics, despite the lack of stereotypes. Let's just put it as like I would love to play like a Lori from Oklahoma once, or specifically Eliza Doolittle. I would love to. Yeah, I would love to play Eliza Doolittle.
So like Golden Age musicals.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. That totally escaped me. Golden Age musicals. Surprisingly, Golden Age.
Yeah, because you have such a contemporary voice. That's awesome.
I know.
I mean, you're very versatile. I never want to say somebody has such a, but I've heard you sing contemporary a lot. Favorite speaker or thought leader?
I love Jay Shetty. He came in during a very important part of my life. I love what he has to bring to the table. And actually, Nelson Mandela is actually a really, I think, he's a great guy. But reading his a biography from the person who wrote who was the ghostwriter for, I believe, his autobiography.
Yeah. It
was just observations of Nelson Mandela. And I could go into like a whole dissertation about that book. But
wow.
The best thing that I can grant you from that book was he said, have a part of you that is like a garden and let that garden grow. So for me, even when I'm doing film acting, it is my voice. When I get to do my voice, it's my garden. And it's the thing that I love spending all my time in and giving and nurturing, not even knowing if something can come out of it.
Before we get back to our interview, a big shout out to Riley Wesson for editing this episode, Scott Ferguson for graphic design, and Jay Quinton Johnson for writing and performing the Voice Memos theme.
Voice Memos.
Well, Nicole, normally I ask the 10th loaded question of favorite podcast host, but I could not possibly ask that after that answer. It makes me think of so many garden metaphors, the secret garden, and, the way that gardens are used, let your garden grow, let our garden grow. And all of these different beautiful ways. And I'm just going to ask, could you conclude our time together with saying that one more time, the way that you just said that?
There's going to be parts of your life that are going to require so much of your attention. And it's important to save one little niche, wonderful cove for yourself. And that is your garden that you nurture, that you grow, that you give to without any hesitation, just because it grants you pure enjoyment. So you let that garden grow.
And for you, Nicole, that's Colla Voce. Follow the voice. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time today. It is always such a joy and a pleasure to talk with you and to share in life with you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon in person. In person.
I hope so. Can I take 2 seconds to just do a plug and chug of things that are happening?
Do it.
So I have one film coming up in June that is for certain, filming that first week. And I'm in a band called Bridge Crew. We get to wear Star Trek uniforms and we'll sing at your local club.
Yes, Bridge Crew.
Yes, Bridge Crew spelled exact, like Motley Crew, but Bridge and wearing Star Trek uniforms. And last plug is I will be at the World Fest Film Festival next weekend in Houston, promoting my film Fallen Sparrow, which is doing its actual big premiere that it never got to do during the rest of COVID. I've won an award for Best Actress from the LA Shorts Film Festival that had like Kevin Bacon in it. Yeah, so if you're in Houston, and I'm sure this podcast will come out way afterwards, but in time you might be able to catch Falling Sparrow on Amazon Prime in the not so near future, but in the future. And you can look me up on IMDb Pro. I go by Nicole Marquez Davis.
And we will be posting all of those links and handles and everything in the description with the podcast.
Amazing. Adam.
Everybody, you want to follow Nicole and her trajectory, because Nicole is already doing big things. It's not that she's going to do big things. She is an impact on the world. And so thank you again for being with me today.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode of Colla Voce. And until next time, remember, follow your heart and follow your voice.